This video already feels like TMI, but I'm gonna share it, right? This video is anything but marriage advice. Hi guys, as everyone knows me here, my name is Rachel. I am a human resource professional, a business analyst, content creator, and a YouTuber. This is a vulnerable story that I've never really shared, and this is the story of how I almost called off my wedding because I thought marriage was going to affect my career. I thought I had to have either or, and I couldn't have both. But I have both now, and I love both. So I thought to share. Thank you very much. A little background story. I grew up in Benin City. Anyone who has lived in Benin or they are born, they are Benin or they've grown up in Benin, know that there's a type of relationship there that is maybe not ideal, especially when it comes to independence. Typically would be that there's a husband who's saying jump and the wife is saying like how high. If you're on social media a lot, you hear a lot of people just saying that, oh, marriage, I had to give up my career because of marriage, because of XYZ, but you're all tied down to the fact that as a woman, when you're married, there's a lot of things that you're going to have to sacrifice and give up for a family. I thought I was going to lose my independence, and my mom raised me. I am a strong-willed person who is very independent. So I felt like I would have to shed off all of these things to become a wife. And I struggled a whole lot. I didn't particularly even want to get married, and I realized that early on when I was like, the devil was really working overtime. I was 18 when I said that I was not going to do marriage at all, because in the environment where I was in, the city I was in, marriage was a bit different, right? There was not a lot of people that were doing marriage God's way. So the pictures, everything, I was like, nah, I'm not going to do it, right? It was really so bad that I remember one time back in school, I was talking to my friend and she was like, oh, I can get married by the time I'm 21. And I was turning 20 in a few months. And I remember one day I was on my way to the ATM, and I got to the ATM and I remembered that she said that, oh, she could get married when she was 21. And I realized I was going to be 20 in a few months. I started having a literal panic attack at the ATM because I'm like, oh my God, if she's ready, if she's able to get married when she's 21, maybe I should be able to. I was just borrowing troubles for nothing, yeah. So fast forward, I was able to, when I graduated, I went to NYC and I started working. And I realized that I loved working. Anybody who knows me know how much I love working in 9 to 5. I love going, I love going career ranks. I absolutely love working. And when I started working, I was dating my husband at the time, and he was already hinting about like getting married and all of that. But I was always having drawbacks. Initially I was like, oh, I want to serve. I wanted to work like a few years. And then I started working a few years, and the connection was coming up again. But this time I was doing corporate in a place that I really loved. I was seeing women in the workplace who were like killing it. And I just could not picture how much was going to add to where I was at the time. I felt that it would require me, taking a sacrifice, doing XYZ, maybe quitting my job, moving. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to do this. I was watching the HR, and I'd seen firsthand how before you even hire a woman, for instance, there's always this reluctance. I say, oh, she's married, she's going to have kids soon. How is that going to play into all of these things? And it was really just like a lot. And I never wanted to be disadvantaged because I was married. I wanted to build my career as high as possible. And at this time, I was in like my mid-20s, and I had seen like a lot of pictures of people who were getting married in their 30s. And at this time, we had even seen the parents, like we had seen both parents, and we're not like actively trying yet. He hadn't proposed, but we had discussed it, and I knew a proposal was coming, and I was dragging my feet. And not because I'm going to put like a very huge disclaimer, because all of you people that don't read, or all of the people that don't listen, not because of who I was marrying, but because of the season in quotes that I was in, right? And prior to that, the year before that, December, I would typically just reflect and just give thanks to God for my year, and then I would pray for my next year was going to look like. And during that December retreat in quote, God had told me that I was going to get married the next year. However, all of that went out the window when I was actually living my dreams. I'm wondering how all of these things is going to be in place. In my head, I was like, I was going to get married in my 30s, which was like a lot of years away. And I'll get married in my 30s. People were getting married in their 30s and they were doing it well. Everything was going okay. And I didn't want to get married at the age where I was now. Either way, I was still going to marry my husband. I just was reluctant about marrying at that time because I felt it was going to like hinder my career. I was just getting started. Maybe I should like put in like a bit more energy into building before I got married, right? I always say that if I wasn't married to my husband, I would not be married to anybody else. That's legit. That is literally not anything else. That is very legit. I enjoy my feedback. And I remember I think my friends were planning my proposal, and they had sensed my reticence and my reluctance, and they were like, "Joe, what's going on? How far, what's going on?" And I think they eventually had to call me, all of them, and do like a group meeting on my head and say, "Okay, speak to us, what's going on?" And they were able to talk sense into me. And I think for me, it was really just prayer. Because again, God had spoken to me the year before that. I just, in the heat of where I thought was the peak of my career, I'd forgotten God's promise, and I'd forgotten that I was actually doing marriage God's way. I remember it was so bad I eventually had to go back to God and just cry that, "God, please, I don't know if I want to get married at this time." And it was very unfair to my partner because we had discussed marriage maybe a few years ago, and I said that, "Oh, just give me like a few years so that I could do XYZ, XYZ, XYZ." And the few years had eventually come. I had this conversation with my I don't say my boyfriend. No, I'm not doing that day. I once had this conversation before with my husband back then that, oh, this was what my fears was. And even before I had that conversation, he had shown me over time, like time after time after time, that he was not going to be a hindrance to my career. And if anything at all, he was going to be a stepping stone, just with the decisions that he made, the encouragement that he gave to me. How I would come to him and say, "Oh, I want to take this exam," or I started working and my manager is mentioning that he's doing this exam, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, let's plan for you to do it like 6 months or to 1 year." And he has just really, really contributed to my growth. But it just felt like where I was at that time, I had a lot of women around me that had gotten married in their 30s. And it was working for them, right? They had built, they've grown, and it was working for them. And I thought that that for me to be happy enough to be married, I had to first have lived a certain life, or maybe done career for like 5-6 years before I now settled down to get married. And it was really just a whole lot, and I was struggling. And I think this is where I always say the importance of friends, of Christ-minded friends who have the Spirit of God in them is very important. Because for me, it was those friends who were interceding on my behalf. Because as much as it seemed ordinary to have that type of struggle, for me, it wasn't ordinary. Like I said, the devil was actually working overtime. He's waiting from God's promises for my life. And I had seen it eventually in terms of like patterns and things that I had to deal with and answer. And I needed to have people who were interceding on my behalf, and they were at the time. So eventually I was like, you know what? I'm going to suck it up and I'm going to do it. But how God really started to help me initially was that when I was in 200 level, I always say that these people are like one of the turning points for me in terms of the pictures that God gave me of how marriage could be. When I was in 200 to 300 level, I had visited an auntie and an uncle. They were in Benin, but they moved and were staying in Lagos at the time. I saw people being like, I don't know, chilled. They were very happy. They were friends. It was wonderful. It was so cute. Shout out to my people. Yeah, really, really. Them, it was like they were in synergy. They were in unity. And my auntie was this businesswoman that was clock it, or how do they used to say, like she was striving, and she was doing like a whole lot. And there was no, because she was married, she had to like shrink down. And that was the seed that God has started sowing in my heart, and I was really helping me. And then all of these things, coupled with my friends, coupled with my husband was also praying for me at the time. Eventually I got married, and I'm going to say here now, I know that I'm always trolling my husband, but getting married has been the best decision I have made for my career. You see how much of a plot twist it is now, that the very thing that I thought was going to limit me and I thought was going to shrink me and bring me down so much has now been the thing that has pushed me up and put me to the level where I'm in now. Something else that I had to realize during this journey is that the pictures, social media, they will project a lot on you. If you are on Twitter, for instance, Twitter is very, very toxic. I would say do Twitter in moderation. There's always somebody who has something negative to say about marriage. There's always somebody with a negative experience. And the people always like, oh, how come good marriages don't have, like, how come good marriages don't have like good PR? Because it's a lot. And if you internalize all of these things, people will project their insecurities upon you. And as a believer, you now fail to realize that marriage is different. Like marriage God's way is different, and is a whole different, like it's a unique design that has to be done in God's way. And this is something that I had to unlearn. I had to shed off all of those things that I was watching, all of the social media like noise. I had to first of all dumb it down. Went on a journey to just trust God, because I never had any doubt about the person I was going to marry. I knew I was going to marry my husband. Before we started dating, I knew I was going to marry my husband, right? It was just, for me, it was just that struggle of that timing, and the fact that it was like there was my career on one hand, there was marriage on the other hand, and I had to choose. But I didn't have to choose, again, it's not either or. for us as believers. You can have both if you want both. As a woman, I feel like you can do anything that you want to do, right? The key, the hack, this is not marriage advice like I mentioned in the beginning, but the hack is just marrying a supportive partner who is led by the Spirit of God. Very important. That's because if he's listening to God, he's being led by God, he's obedient to the voice of God. Trust me, you are going to skyrocket, you're going to shoot. In the space of time I've been married for almost 2 years now, 2 years in December. Oh, 2 years in December. In the space of time that I've been married, I have grown more than 10x all round, except maybe my weight, we're still, it's a work in progress. We're still working on that, right? But really, for everywhere else, in terms of emotionally, mentally, financially, everything, right? I have grown a lot, and is attributed first of all to God in my husband, the fact that he's led by God, and the person of who my husband is. I did this video for anybody who is probably at a crossroad that I was at that time when I wanted to get married, or at that time when I was getting married and I thought that I couldn't have both. I couldn't have the best of both worlds like Hannah Montana, and I needed to sacrifice something, right? So if you're ever in this situation, I wanted to let you know that your fears are valid. I want to let you know that your fears are very valid in a sense, right? But if you're doing life with God and your partner is also doing life with God, it can only get better from here. I know that when kids come, it's a different ball game because there's a new variable in the picture, and there'll be more sacrifices to make. However, I am still more confident, right, because of who I married and what I've already seen so far in terms of the support that I've received and my dreams and how much my career has grown, right? Sure, when kids come, there'll be need to like restructure the plan, put things together in place, but I think it's something that I can work out. And it has also helped that I have like a lot of pictures of women as well who are married and doing career. I really hope that you found this video very helpful. This is not my usual type of videos, but I really thought to just share this because again, there's somebody out there who might benefit from this video, or somebody out there who is struggling in terms of making a decision. I would always say, do it God's way, do it with God, and everything will be fine. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have trials and tribulations. So the Bible said that you have it, but again, you overcome by the blood of the Lamb. Thank you so much for coming to my TED Talk, my marriage video. If you haven't subscribed yet, side eye. I'm giving you side eye if you have not subscribed yet. And my goal for this channel is that it becomes this comfort show that anybody can put on, maybe when you're doing dishes, you're eating, like a mini Netflix that you just watch, either when you're eating, you're doing dishes, or anything like that. So if there's any topic you want me to do a video on, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.